IT Pro TV, an easy, entertaining approach to online IT training. Access over 2,000 hours of up-to-date, high-quality video content live and on demand via your PC, mobile device, and more. For a free 7-day trial and 30% off the lifetime of your account, visit itpro.tv/securityweekly and use the code SW30. Logarithm's Netmon Freemium delivers real-time network visibility to quickly identify emerging threats in your IT environment. Netmon Freemium is a free, commercial-grade network forensics and traffic analytics solution. You can use Netmon Freemium's powerful capabilities to search against all observed network traffic, identify abnormal traffic patterns and application usage, and quickly analyze full packet captures. Take the first step towards real-time network visibility. Visit logarithm.com/freemium to learn more and download it today. NetSparker, the developers of desktop and cloud-based web application security scanners that enable you to automatically identify vulnerabilities in your web applications and web services. NetSparker scanners employ a unique and dead-accurate vulnerability scanning engine that automatically verifies vulnerabilities with their proof of concept. For more information, visit them on the web at netsparker.com or email at contact@netsparker.com. Onapsis is the leading provider of solutions to protect ERP systems from cyber attacks. Customers can secure their SAP and Oracle business-critical platforms from espionage, sabotage, and financial fraud risks. Visit them on the web at onapsis.com. The SANS Institute, the most trusted source for computer security certification training and research. Visit SANS.org to explore their full curriculum and latest training offerings. Welcome back, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly. The call for papers is open for B-Sides London, being held on June 7th at the ILEC Conference Center in, London, of course. The CFP closes on March 27th, and presenters will be announced on May 1st. They're also looking for presenters in the rookie track and mentors for the rookies, as well as people to run workshops. Find out more at securitybsides.com.uk.
That is a great event. I sneak over. I have to work the Info Security Conference, which is a more commercial conference, and I really like that one. They were one of the first to ban Booth Babes, but I love B-Sides London, obviously.
Is it the ILEC or ILEC?
Yeah, ILEC. I forget what it stands for. Don't ask me. Those Brits. They
I spelled it out.
I think that's correct. I don't know. I just show up, and I'm like, I think they'll let me in, even in spite of Brexit this year. I think I can probably get in. But I do love, I enjoy B-Sides. I love that week, especially now that it's in June, not April. It's like pleasant and stuff.
Nice.
Security news. And London's a great city.
Hey, can we, let me just dive in, and Jeff and I can kick off with the story
the curmudgeonly story.
Well, this is not curmudgeonly. This morning, Howard Schmidt passed.
Yes.
And for those that never had the pleasure of meeting Howard, he was an amazing individual. I didn't always agree with him, but anybody whose career in, air quotes, security starts with 3 tours in Vietnam, ends up as a SWAT officer, then CSO of Microsoft, and one of the driving forces behind Microsoft's trustworthy computing, and then becoming the cybersecurity czar for the Obama administration, and a consultant and advisor to people around the globe and corporations around the world. His loss is a loss to our industry. Jeff, would you like to jump in on that?
I think you just about summed it up. I realized when I joined the curmudgeons that there's only one way out, unfortunately.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we had there was a standing invitation, but he was unable to join us this year, and the reason is fairly obvious for the annual curmudgeon dinner. But there are a lot of things if you're involved with ISC Squared. He was a tireless volunteer there. But Howard was an amazing guy. I'm looking forward to Bill Brenner is writing a piece. He's been soliciting input, people's recollections of Howard. And if you have any stories of Howard Schmidt, reach out to Bill Brenner. He's easy to find on Twitter. Or you can reach out to me because I've got a couple of them on Shoulders of InfoSec. But we've lost another giant. So There, now that I've been a real bummer.
No, but I think that's important, and my condolences to the family, of course, and it's a great loss to our community, of course, as well. But I think it's great to mention things like that so that people that didn't recognize the name would go read about it. In
So there's Jeff put a link in to the Dark Reading article, which is a good summary. There, I have a couple of links. His Wikipedia page is very good on Shoulders of InfoSec. I've got a couple of remembrances from Scott Charney as well as from Wim Reams. We'll gather some more. But, as sad as that is, it is also worth remembering that our industry is so young that a lot of the foundational people we can still reach out to. And, we've done that here.
Realize as we get older that a lot of us, especially
Speak for yourself. I'm not getting any older.
But in 10 years, a lot of us may qualify for your secret club. So my advice to you is to increase the age limit. To not let us in so early.
Yeah, well, but
keep it more.
There are people. It was one of the things when I did when I added a segment for AppSec people in the Shoulders of InfoSec. I was basically like, screw these children, because there were like 2 of the 35 or so that our Snake and I came up with that were older than me. But if you're not familiar, you should check out what Howard contributed to our industry. And
it's funny too, Jack, because we are a young industry and a lot of the people are still around, and I'm amazed at how many of the kiddies, as it were, are unaware of some of the pioneers, that only go back 15, 20 years. How fleeting fame is sometimes.
And that's even if you step over from traditional cybersecurity into, the hacker space. Whether we talk about Neville Maskelyne 100 years ago, the gentleman hacker who hacked Marconi and invented the pay toilet, or whether we step forward to the ethical, the air quotes ethical hacker and martyr that was subverted the Germans during the Vichy government. Blanking on his name, we were talking about it earlier. God, I hate being old and stupid. It'll come to me.
Just be old and curmudgeon.
Yeah. Anyway, but there are people that don't understand why Dark Tangent is significant. I mean, they're seriously right. There are people who don't get why Jeff Moss is significant. There are people that don't know who Dan Farmer is. And it's okay. I get it, because if you're part of this community or want to be part of the security or hacker communities, you're running full tilt to keep up. And you probably don't actually keep up running full tilt.
Yeah.
So the ability to look over your shoulder is a luxury that we don't all have. But as came up in a recent thread, Shaq has given a great presentation on this. I've given a few. Other people have talked about the history of how we've gotten there. Give somebody an hour and take a look and see how we got where we are. And one of the challenges that we see over and over is if we don't learn from the past, we get to do it again. So, Paul, I remember you making this comment. I don't remember where it was, like 5-6 years ago when virtualization started to be a thing. And, it's like, multi-tenancy and virtualized environments kind of go back to mainframes, right?
This is not new.
What is old is new again.
So anyway, there we go.
And now we refer to that as the cloud.
Right. We've lost a giant. Thankfully, the cloud's bulletproof. Who wants to take that tee up to the next store?
Oh, my.
Dear God.
Dear God.
Man, he set you up for that
typos? All right, back to the point about you shouldn't have typos in your depositions. It turns out you shouldn't have your typos in your code commits either.
And that's where Cloudbleed stemmed from. Was it?
No, that was the S3 failure. Was a typo in.
Yes.
An update. Yes.
Okay.
Because Amazon.
Cloudbleed was different. That was shared memory.
Cloudbleed was more like a syntax error than
you're right.
Yes.
Yep. So the S3 thing went S3 portions of S3 were down at Amazon, affecting services for all sorts of crazy stuff.
And even if you had your AWS instances spread out, S3 didn't necessarily replicate the way you expected. Now, if you're interested in this, Amazon, as they tend to do, has done a very public postmortem of what went wrong.
Nice.
It's very educational. They're doing things to fix it, but if you pay attention to this story, you will understand why, in spite of some people that love to throw shade at Cloud, they still have...
Wait, did Jack just say throw shade at?
Yes, I did.
Is that like a 1800s reference?
Yes,
or something?
that is shade. That was from the year the Pompeii exploded and we had winter all the next year.
If nothing else, I would have expected you would have said sade and not shade.
Oh my god.
Band name.
Look,
I win.
Look, I'm culturally illiterate, but not quite that culturally illiterate. That's
Throw Charday at the Cloud. I like that. Yes. Throw Charday at the Cloud. I got it.
That's don't let her have pitch and tempo correction though, because it's fucking. I'm so old. I remember when people sang.
Oh, shit.
Good Lord. Can we talk about Cloudbleed now?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, talk
Sure.
about...
We just did.
Clearly,
First of all, Cloudbleed, really? Cloudbleed? Does it have a logo? Yes, it does have a
Yes,
logo.
it has a logo.
And by the way, if any of our listeners were planning on launching a feminine hygiene product in the next year, I would suggest taking that logo. I don't know if it's copyrighted yet. I'd totally typo squat or whatever. It's
when you can outsource your menstruation to the cloud.
If you could do that, you would be a trillionaire overnight. And I say that as a
So Paul, tell us about Cloudbleed. That's a fine spirit.
Tell us about being in control of your podcast.
It's not his podcast anymore. Welcome to Larry's Security Weekly.
Cheers.
Cheers, bitches.
Cheers.
all right, so talk about Heartbleed and how vulnerable people still are.
Cloudbleed.
No, Heartbleed.
Heartbleed, is it Heartbleed, Cloudbleed, and what was the other one? There was another bleed.
Nosebleed.
If another one of these comes up, it's going to be ass bleed.
Not if it's consensual. So anyway.
Oh, I'm sorry, Paul.
Jiggity.
I'm sorry, Paul.
So Heartbleed. So we went from Cloudbleed to Heartbleed, so Heartbleed is still a problem. You know, I mean, that's
It is.
And it didn't take. You know, many people observed that this would be around for years, including several of us. And it turns out we were right, because commoditized Linux distribution stuff, we're not going to update any of this shit. You can buy brand new things right now that are still vulnerable to Heartbleed.
I did a test not that long ago for someone who shall remain nameless that had tests done previously that had identified Heartbleed. And when we did the test,
please.
it was very easy to rewrite that section of the report because it was a copy-paste from one of the previous reports in which the same hosts were vulnerable to Heartbleed many years later.
So this was one of the challenges to Heartbleed was that it wasn't just a patch, right? You had to do like certificate shit, right? Which we know is hard. Right, you needed to reissue things to make sure that you didn't have compromised certificates out there,
or it was embedded a library that was embedded in something
stuff.
in an
So it was.
Right.
We knew it was going to be tricky, but we're 2 years out and that's like
3 years.
Three years.
Yep. And that
Wow,
now that said,
geez.
think about this. In
3
that
years. That's right. That has been
at
3
least
years. Holy
in the
shit.
case that I was looking
Glad
at,
I didn't
it was
get
a,
old.
it was a web server, so it was a stock standard Apache.
I'm going to go out on a limb and
type.
say that there are still
Yeah.
scripts floating around the internet that if you throw against your HP ILO, the web UI will fall down and go boom. Because, well, that's a intersection of Heartbleed and ILO. Oh, my God. Those two should never reproduce, but they do in the wild.
Pretty much.
Yeah, save us, Paul.
I
Save
was-
us,
I
Paul.
was
get,
going
get some
somewhere
control. Come on. Come on. Yeah, where are you going?
I was going, with Cloudbleed.
Cloudbleed.
Your credentials were out there in the wild.
Maybe-
And it's-
maybe.
But here's the thing, and however small that possibility is,
It's non-zero.
But think about how vulnerable your credentials are, right?
And I want to make something very interesting here that I think is absolutely crazy about Cloudbleed is that you talk about your credentials, but which credentials? Because
don't know.
because if you're talking because it was Cloudflare, which sites that you use could have been memory
there were all
leaked
kinds of websites
from that are using Cloudflare for something like DDoS protection that are in front of so many things that you may not even know about.
Then there was websites that you search for the websites that are using Cloudflare, which may be also hosted by Cloudflare. No, but it was a hot mess. But the other thing is like an attack of that nature, right, is one thing. But recently, like I was looking at just Facebook credential harvesting, right, and all of a sudden you get a message from one of your friends, hey, you're in this YouTube video. Like, those... one of my friends got that attack, and I was like, well, that's interesting. So I started analyzing the malware. And my wife's like, oh, I clicked on it, but then I realized that was bad, and I closed the window really fast. And I'm like, okay, I got to go analyze this. And at the time, actually, fortunately for us, whatever site they were obfuscating, like, had gotten taken down by the ISP or... Like, basically, the attack was broken.
It was out in the cloud.
It was probably out in the cloud and probably down because of S3. This was a couple of weeks ago. Excuse me, a couple of weeks ago. But it proved to me how fragile our credentials can be. And sometimes it's within your control. Sometimes it's completely out of your control. I think, and I know I'm going to get flame mail for this. I'm probably flamed right now on this show live. But... I think it's a case for two-factor authentication. And we can poo-poo two-factor authentication all we want.
No, we can't.
But I've enabled it. And now the thing that I will poo-poo is that when you do enable it, it's not standard across all of the different services and sites that you use.
And
now,
it probably never will
we
be.
talked about this in Enterprise Security Week. We were like, oh, there's 26 standards, so we're going to create a standard that standardizes all the standards.
Oh, God, yes.
We're going to create our own standard that's a consolidation of all the other standards. Now we have 27 standards.
Right. The beauty of standards is everybody gets their own, right? It's
the
like
wonderful
Oprah.
thing about standards is
it's
we have
like
so many of
Oprah.
them.
You get a standard. You get a standard. You get a standard.
So much so that I carry two-factor authentication keys with me because I don't remember the name. There's
I carry two, too.
the YubiKey.
There's these are both YubiKeys. One is like $10 or $15.
Yep.
And one is the YubiKey, the $40 one.
Yep.
That I think the difference is this has NFC or something like that.
Yep. I have to dig mine out. I haven't.
But what you'll find, Larry, is that like one site, like Facebook, that's
that
fine.
one.
It'll do this one. That's fine. But like LastPass, like you need this one.
So did you plug both of them in at the same time?
No. So for some sites I use one, and for some sites I use the other. And then of course but what I found was I probably should have just bought the more expensive one. And we'll probably do a segment on this later, so I get more information than the generalization I'm making now. But the more expensive one is more universally supported.
Yeah.
Because you got to think about it too. Like, what if I lose this? That's bad. So you keep another one in like a locked safe or drawer in your office so that, not so much so that someone could steal it. I mean, that could happen, right? But more so like, I've lost this or it breaks. Now I can't log into my sites. But what I found was that, so some sites support this in varying degrees of these keys, right? But other sites will allow you to do Google Authenticator.
Yep.
Other sites will do the SMS verification.
Yep.
Even if you just look at social media, between Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, Facebook now supports the key.
Yep.
So the blue key is blue or black key on mine is for YubiKey is the Facebook, and then with LinkedIn and Twitter, they don't support a hardware token. As far as I can tell, you have to do the cell phone two-factor.
So that I would argue that I think maybe two-factor isn't the answer, but I would argue that multi-factor is the
Some
answer.
additional factor other than
Right.
your username and password. Which,
Right.
like I said, it could be completely beyond my
when
control.
we're talking about a soft token or
oh my
an
God.
SMS.
So having, oh God, I'm having flashbacks. Having had the argument with people that goes something like, we use two-factor authentication because we require a username and a password.
Right. Not true.
Right.
Something has something, you know.
All right, and then the other one is, which is like a whole fucking rant, and nobody likes it when I rant. No, your email can't be your username. Stop it.
Well,
I
that's some of the
understand
reason
that
why I
it's
don't
easy,
like- but-
because I understand it's easy. It's easy, but so was that girl in college. And remember how long you had to take penicillin for. It's not right.
But that's some of the
Because-
reasons why I don't like the
because-
cell phone either, Jack, because especially if you're on Android, like I really
Holy
don't trust my Android device to be
no,
any factor of my
it's-
authentication. I mean,
it's well,
that's why I went with the YubiKey because I trust.
So it
and
depends on where you are, right?
But there are people that don't trust the YubiKey either. There's
Right,
issues on that.
right,
and we'll-
but
We'll cover that and more.
They're
gonna get-
they're imperfect.
Yes.
But
We're gonna get
if
hate
you're
mail on that, I'm sure.
if you are if you're not a dumbass
The big presumption.
and you're using Android, you're still risky, right? But if you're using, fill in the blank, Google Authenticator.
Hold on, Jack. I use Android, and I'm a dumbass. I
Well,
use
it's-
Android. Wait, and
all
I'm
right,
not. I'm not a dumb. Hold, bear with me. I'm not a dumbass. And then I use Android, and occasionally I drink a lot,
Yes.
or maybe more than
But
occasionally.
let's look at systems like whether
So
you
would that make you a dumbass?
RSA.
a drunk dumbass.
RSA's got a two-factor auth thing. Microsoft has a two-factor auth thing. Google has a
has a
two-factor. Duo
Yep.
has a platform. There are a
26
whole
standards.
bunch. There are a whole bunch of them. But if there's an app that doesn't necessarily completely rely on the underlying Android stack, or God, it pains me to, pains me to say this. Or if you just have that on iOS, God, I can't believe I'm saying this. If you have it on iOS, you can probably trust all of those things even more. It's better than not. It's like, in spite of all the shit that just got dropped on
Cloudbleed.
password managers.
Oh, one.
Yeah, all the stuff that just got dropped on password managers.
Yeah.
Most of it is not because of the password managers. It's because you run a password manager on Android. You're still better off
Oh yeah.
With the password.
than your cat's name as a password.
Because
and the one email address you
there's
use
still-
for everything.
There's still now two things that you need to fuck up.
Yeah,
But the fact that we have to have this long of a conversation about authentication, it just speaks to the problem. I mean, and Doug,
so this
Doug,
gets-
I want you to chime in on this because Doug's
you're
leading
old.
the charge. No, well, not only that, but Doug's leading the
My
charge.
voice is my password.
That's right. Doug's leading the charge on Secure Digital Life, which is security for individuals. Now, Doug, how do we take what we just talked about and distill it down for your average user who's trying to provide security as an individual and not look at this from an organizational perspective?
Well, I think the problem that is there is the exact same problem as organizations have, because it's really an individual problem in organizations as well. The biggest issue right now for two-factor authentication for end users is one of the things that you brought up right at the beginning of this conversation, which was, oh, what if I lose it? And the level of support it takes for this is very high. And I mean, I get people asking me all the time, well, what do I do? And they can't follow, I need an SMS text message to two-factor authenticate on Twitter. So adding things like YubiKeys, and we've looked at that. I mean, I've looked at that for clients. I've looked at it for enterprises. And even in an enterprise with a help desk that's on site, you'll get pushback from the enterprise on that because they say, we're going to have managers losing their keys. We implemented a VPN, similar two-factor authentication approach with a biometric for an enterprise. This was a while ago, but it was complicated, and training users and training end users is so difficult. And there's not really a company right now, even somebody like YubiKey, they don't really have the kind of sort of warm and fuzzy approach to supporting average users who don't have training, in-house support staff, and backup plans. So I lose my YubiKey. So getting them to adopt two-factor authentication is a huge challenge. Plus, there's not a lot of perceived risk by end users. So probably on SDL, I know the next couple of shows on SDL we're doing are about, the next show coming up is probably going to be about net neutrality, because I had a whole bunch of questions from the VPN episode of Secure Digital Life about how do I protect myself using Proton Mail or using VPNs or using Tor. But I want to do a show about two-factor authentication and why it's so critical that you start learning how to use it if you're an end user. So that's probably coming up in the next couple of weeks.
It's a tricky for the end user and the individual. It's a tricky.
Yep. You got to support all 26 standards.
It's a standards thing.
And you know what?
It's a user support thing, like Doug said too. So if I turn it on for everyone in my organization, like Doug, like that's a support issue. You know.
So this is really fun because I thought, besides Orlando, I need to submit a talk just because I'm going to be there for SANS and that type of stuff. And I'm like, what am I going to talk about? I could rehash something old, like and that type of stuff. But what about something new? And I think I got the talk. And I was going to tell the story, but I think I'm going to save it for the talk. In that, the talk is a use case for two-factor authentication and how not having two-factor authentication can ruin your life.
That's a great title is that the title for the talk?
It is now. No, I literally thought.
I was like, I think that's a great title for the talk, Larry. Good job to you.
I literally thought of that as I was saying it. Well, this is how
great
far.
Title.
This is
great
how
title.
far.
I would totally attend that talk. Your talk I would attend anyway. If it was someone I didn't recognize and that was the title, I would want to attend.
Yeah. So I have an interesting backstory to that, and it's become very deep, and I'll explain after the show to you. But yeah, it's been hilarious as this thing has gone on.
Speaking of hilarious, let's talk about IoT.
Yeah. Oh, and I've got a follow-on IoT story for this one.
There was two stories in here, and I'm being kind of curmudgeon-y because both Jeff and Jack are on the show. I guess I was kind of asked my team. It was kind of curmudgeon-y today with emails. I don't know if you guys probably didn't see that, but I was curmudgeon-y with emails today, and my staff thought it was great. They were like, "That is awesome! Like, can you do that more often? Because that was great."
Goddamn, you're old.
I'll explain that after.
Yeah.
Something about an infographic. I was like,
"Oh shit!"
I'm like,
infographics. First of all, information. The only thing graphic about most infographics, by the way, if you're in marketing, listen to this very carefully. The only thing graphic about your fucking infographics is the language I use when I look at the bullshit you make me look at. Because there's certainly no information there.
It's graphic.
My response was...
My response is graphic.
Yes. My response was something on the lines of, we don't do infographics, and nor will we ever be interested in an infographic. So please stop emailing us. Then we joked that we could run their infographics on the audio portion of the show, right? And it would just be silence.
There is a very famous Johnny Cash infographic, which is like the only one that I like, and everybody that should know knows exactly the one I mean.
Cash only. Yes.
Yep. So yeah, if we played their infographic, it would sound like the dial tone when you pick up the phone. Oh wait, people don't have those anymore.
Yes,
you got to be
pretty much. So IoT, hidden backdoors in the Chinese Internet of Things, which the backdoor was in a GSM to voice over IP device, which had a baked-in backdoor from the manufacturer. So basically, username and password was the default on all of them. Like, we haven't seen that before. Then researchers from, I believe it was IOActive, hacked into robots. They listed all the different model robots for those of us that have robots, and they kind of titled it as like the death robots attack and killer robots. And they wouldn't describe in detail the vulnerabilities, but it stemmed from common vulnerabilities in IoT devices. My whole take on that was like, look, people, like we know these devices have these vulnerabilities. Like, yeah, you can go find devices and find them with baked-in backdoors and common vulnerabilities, cross-site scripting, authentication bypass or backdoors. Like, we know this. The fact that you're making a big, and I apologize for IOActive, I'm not really picking. I'm picking on you. I mean, I'm sure Cesar Cerruto and company and all of our friends at IOActive did some awesome research on that. Making the world a better place. However, there needs to be a larger conversation that we've talked about, especially on episode 500. Go watch that segment as well. I do. I'm kind of like, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Like, I do agree with identifying vulnerabilities in these devices. It's important to get them fixed. However, if you're then trying to like profit from that or make a big media splash because it comes across our news desk that, we found this vulnerability, like, that's not the compelling thing for me. The compelling thing is that you're helping the community and making these things more secure. That, to me, is compelling. It's not compelling that these are the same vulnerabilities. It's compelling if it's a new vulnerability for me or a new attack vector or something that we really need to look at that we haven't seen before. But so many stories on IoT insecurity, I should say, are pointing out the same class of flaws in all of these devices. And this is a totally fixable...
different device, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Different device, same problem.
It's a fixable problem.
Yep.
In the technology portion of it, it's all of the other political, social things that need to change.
And not to toot my own horn, and I will fully admit that I am...
No, toot your horn, because your talk is along the lines of exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, so I'm going to toot my own horn and another talk that I've done.
As long as it's your horn that's tooting.
Yeah, about...
Yes, please.
Just... we're
still in kill range. He's on the other side of the table, Jack, but we're still in kill range.
Yes.
We're doing the show long enough. We're in kill range.
Hey, do you guys smell bacon?
Yeah, it's not the beer days. It's not the beer days, because you remember the beer days.
God.
Oh,
Yes.
God.
Good Lord.
Although,
although lactose intolerant,
like
beer intolerant.
I may be...
I'm scared.
I may have to swing through New York. I may have to bring a case of Omegang in April.
Please do.
Yeah.
So that's
we'll need a smoke eater, except it'll need to be a fart eater.
So that's the thing that I learned from Mike Poor's son is that you drop an SBD and nobody's gotten it yet, and then you go, "Do you smell bacon?" And everybody goes, "Oh God!"
Because everyone wants to smell bacon.
Right. So IoT and
that would be Mike Poor's son that would do something
to toot my
learned from the master.
To toot my own horn and not that kind of horn. And I will fully admit, we've talked about IOTA in the past, the Internet of Things attack methodology, in how we can start doing pen tests against IoT devices.
And who was it that developed that framework, Larry?
Me and myself at Indian Guardians, and we've had some help from the team there. But I was the one that came up with the idea, and it's behind. We haven't yet released the full documentation, and I think we're going to go with the approach of release early and release often. That we're going to release what we've got.
But that's the kind of thing that, in my point, like that should be making the news, other than just picking on like frameworks to help us better identify attack.
You take that framework and you would have potentially eliminated all this same problem over and over again on these multiple devices.
Right.
And to that, segueing into one of the stories that I've got in there is that IOTA is about testing the ecosystem. And we think about IoT, the ecosystem. We've talked about attacking the devices that have all got the same problem, attacking the device. But in the story that I've got in there, my story number 1, I took a leak on my teddy bear in that it was an IoT device, but it wasn't an attack against the device. It was about the back-end shit that makes everything work. So what ended up happening is that there's sets of these animals that are internet enabled and would do.
What was the company? Spiral?
It is.
Was it Spiral?
I don't.
I should
remember.
know this. Spiral Toys. Yeah, Spiral Toys.
Yeah. So Spiral Toys has internet quote savvy teddy bears called Cloudpets, which stores kids' voice messages so that they can give them to their parents. Daddy, I love you, and then they can get them on their iPhone and that type of stuff.
As well as email addresses, addresses, names of family members.
Well, so you're getting ahead of me.
Sorry.
So they use the device and
Covered the story on Heck Naked News.
yeah, they use these devices, and what happens? The ecosystem where all this shit ends up in the cloud is vulnerable with a MongoDB that people go. We've talked about MongoDB recently.
Well, it was in the public cloud, and it was definitely public.
Oh yeah, it was public.
Troy Hunt did the research on this and found that pretty much anyone can just go
Yep.
access it, Jack.
Yep, 821,000.
They should have kept it on Amazon S3, and then nobody could access.
So, the misconfigured MongoDB had the passwords stored for the toys stored there. 821,000 of them were cryptographically hashed, but there was no requirements for password strength, so a good portion of them were easily cracked, given that you're giving them to use
Was it a
for
salted
kids and
hash
so-
or not, or did it say?
No, it was not salted.
It was not salted.
To the best of my knowledge, it
greatly
was not
decreases
salted.
your
But it was in a friggin' database publicly accessible to the internet that was
like
all the things.
Troy made it sound like you just kind of like if you knew where to browse to, like you could just go download the database.
Yes. Welcome to MongoDB. Me name Mongo. We download DB. But seriously, this is the ecosystem. This is the part behind the device that is vulnerable to stuff that we just saw recently with this whole MongoDB
There's
thing.
the device,
like,
there's the app, there's the wireless protocols, there's the cloud, it all.
There's the network protocols, there's the network in use, there's the web app that you go to log in and create your accounts. There's all
There's
of this
the API, which is separate from the web app. Exactly.
all of these things, and quite honestly, this is part of the reason why the IOTA hasn't been released is because the testing the volume is massive, and it takes time to write a methodology for
We're testing all of those
stuff.
different things. No, I totally.
And
you're making me depressed now because there's like just more attack vectors.
Yep, and it's sad, So. And that's part of the reason why it's taking me so long.
You know, in an uplifting story that really shows the security of the internet, WordPress has had over a million. The gallery plugin.
Look, you just said WordPress, and we got the explicit tag again.
It's just
Nothing else we've said but WordPress.
it's just bad.
Well, look, I mean,
a listener did point out that you can auto update WordPress. I believe there's also a
because I'm sure that doesn't break anything.
Well, I'm not
holy
saying
shit!
Well, I mean, it's a catch-22. I mean, your site could be broken, or it could be taken over.
if you hit the power button until your laptop turns off, it's secure.
Yep. Friends don't let friends run WordPress.
friends don't let friends cite Ponemon.
Now, your mileage is going to vary depending on your WordPress configuration and your plugins. However,
you know
over
what's
the
really
years,
cool
I've
is
had
static websites.
I've had better success. Not so much you can auto update WordPress and plugins, but even just like going in and updating WordPress manually, which has gotten easier, and updating plugins manually, which has gotten easier. It is I found less problem, and again, that depends on how many dependencies you have and things like that. Also, updating your theme because vulnerabilities are embedded in your theme. So WordPress has a similar problem to like IoT, what we're talking about. Like there's so many different components and different attack vectors. In WordPress's defense, it has gotten easier to update that kind of stuff. But yeah, so there was a WordPress gallery plugin with 1 million installs. And that's what happens when someone finds a flaw in a really popular WordPress plugin that has a SQL injection bug. Bad things happen on the internet.
So here's the thing that, and I learned this trick sort of from Kevin Johnson many years ago, is that run WordPress all you want. Don't put it on the internet.
Yeah.
So one of the approaches, one of the approaches that we've taken to that,
Is that
I actually
apply to SharePoint too?
Yes. So I actually manage a WordPress site, and it is the world's most potentially secured WordPress site.
Don't give the URL.
No, I'm not. I'm not. In that the WordPress dynamic content is on a private network behind a firewall that you have to connect to a VPN to use your editor or even manage or create content on.
And then it just pushes static content out.
Yes, so it has a plugin, which kind of scares me, that creates static content that dumps it to a directory that then on a schedule SCPs static content out to an AWS host.
That's pretty cool. Did Kevin write that plugin, or did
no?
It's
a public plugin. If anybody wants it, email us, and I'd be happy to share it. It's one of those public plugins that's out there, but it does require, quote, an extra step to be able to publish content on that. In that, if you're using a GUI on your laptop to access and create content, then you actually have to go to the admin interface and click publish.
Right
there.
Gotcha.
But if you just use the editor at the WordPress admin pages, then it's a matter of just flipping over and pressing publish there as well. And then, so what I've done is have that so that there's a cron job that you can either, one, SSH to the system and run the script manually, or you can just wait for midnight and it will automatically publish it at midnight.
Oh, that's good. One of the other stories I had in here was, so researchers have uncovered that a PowerShell Trojan uses DNS queries to create a command and control subsystem. Yawn, yawn. Like, this is something that if you're not looking for this in your network today, you're already probably 3 to 5 years too late.
If you're not looking for DNS and C2C, you're
or PowerShell being you're late.
Although I admit maybe putting the two of those together is probably
the thing that got me about this particular story is that it was Cisco's Talos's threat research group that found and published this malware, but the security researcher who alerted the Cisco Talos group said he did so because of he or she, I'm not sure which, but because of one peculiar feature of the code that he discovered. It called out Cisco SourceFire security appliance, in particular with encoded text, to say SourceFire sucks. So inside of your malware, you're calling out Cisco, and then someone finds that and reports it to Cisco. Now, this was delivered as an email attachment with a malicious Word document that uses VB script to then package the PowerShell commands. Look, if you can't detect this on your network,
you're fucked.
Lord. Good Lord, are you in trouble? I'm curious why this was made. I think the reason it made the news was because it was malware that kind of called out SourceFire. That was the most interesting part of the story to me.
Interesting.
This is a very obviously. Oh, there was something else in here. No, so the Visual Basic application, it was spotted on Pastebin, apparently by Microsoft Threat Intelligence Center General Manager John Lambert, to launch PowerShell commands to install a backdoor on the system. And so it was uploaded to, he noticed that because it was uploaded to, VirusTotal or something. That's what the article says. You just have to read this article for yourself.
Oh my God.
It's nothing groundbreaking here. So it's pretty hilarious.
So to that, you talk about some of that stuff, and if you're an attacker, you're, quote, burning all your good stuff by doing something like that. One of InGuardian's friends, Mr. Joe Vest, one of the founders over at Minis.io, they just released a tool yesterday that you can use for leveraging expired domains for, quote, red team engagements. And I'd argue you could probably use this on the attack side too. So they've got a new tool out there. What do they call it? So there's I don't know if Domain Hunter. So, and there's also some stuff that they leverage and some other tools they reference called Cat My Fish. So, effectively, what is going on here is that they're using Domain Hunter to use expireddomains.net listings. So expireddomains.net has a list of recently expired domains that are available for registration, and takes that list and then compares them to all of the domain. Nice. Man, you've got a nice ash.
Thanks.
Or all
It
over
almost
your shirt.
went. I felt it going down my sleeve,
Nice, and it's still sitting like right here.
and when I moved, it went all over my shirt. That was
So-
I couldn't even try harder to make that.
You could have, but
more of a mess.
You could have. So effectively, what it's doing is it's using that expireddomains.net list, taking the list of recently expired domains that are available for registration, and comparing those to the various site ranking for content. So if you've got a domain that has been ranked by, say, what is it, Blue Coat?
Alexa.
No, Blue Coat for malware.
Malware rankings, yeah.
Malware rankings. And if your site has been, quote, legitimate and has some content in the recent history that has been really legitimate, and then Blue Coat says, yeah, this is totes legit, you buy that domain name and you spin that up in your C2 infrastructure so that it doesn't get flagged when you're doing your command and control stuff.
I see.
So you're leveraging the previous rankings of the previous owners before that expires to have better success.
That's cool.
Like,
So
wow.
it's yet another example of an entire class of bugs, which is time to check out versus time to use.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we're abstracting it away from an OS or application level, but it's the difference between when we look at something and say it's okay and when we use it. And we've only known about this for 50 years conservatively, that things shouldn't be good forever.
In your last story here, Larry, airport security lapses.
Yeah. So
No way. No way.
Jack wound up.
No way.
Yes.
All right, 3 minutes. 3 minutes. 3 minutes to get wound up about TSA. Nowhere near
They're
enough
better.
time.
They're better than ICE and CBP.
So the deal was that there was some documents that came out that that were leaked that talk about data exposure.
Wait, so a federal agency leaked this?
Yeah, they were so
And
to
that's
talk,
not the worst part of it.
talking about data exposure at Stewart International Airport. That talks about all of the security failures that were discovered at said airport, including the lack of comparison at that airport, the lack of comparison of names that were checking in for flights against the no-fly list. So if you were on the no-fly list and you wanted to fly, you went to this particular airport. There was some other stuff about ways in which backups were done of critical systems at the airport, that they were put on a NAS that were directly accessible from the internet that anybody could log into, and
So, yeah.
Wait, so what was the part with the no-fly list?
So basically, when you checked in at the airport, you're supposed to have your name checked against the no-fly list. And their systems were not accurately checking names against said no-fly list.
By accurate, I mean false positive or false negative?
False
or both?
negative. False negative.
False
Like they
negative,
weren't
yeah.
checking,
Gotcha.
period, at all. So false negative because their system was broken. Hi, my name.
Further.
Hi, my name is Larry Pesci, and I'm on the no-fly list. Great, Mr. Pesci. We did our checks, and it didn't query the no-fly list system, and you're not on it. So
The no-fly list is a friggin' abomination.
I met,
It always has been.
just ask Carlos.
I met a sommelier in Grapevine, Texas. First of all, I'll let you have a moment to think about that. I met a sommelier in Grapevine, Texas.
Grapevine.
Wait,
see
sommelier
what you-
like
I see
a
what-
wine expert?
Yeah.
I see what you did
Yes,
there.
Or
yes.
sommelier like someone from Somalia?
Yeah,
who's on the
no,
no-fly
sommelier.
list? Oh,
Sommelier,
okay.
you know, a wine ecologist. although they hate it when you call them winecologists.
A wino.
Who became a sommelier after physically doing security testing of.
Doug, that's your typing is really loud.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Who did used
not
to do
lightning.
physical testing of TSA facilities, and he quit and
Hold
became
on.
a
Wait,
sommelier.
how does a sommelier?
So he had a job.
Oh.
I will like
had a real job? Is that what you're saying?
I will obfuscate some of his details. But the day that he walked through a major U.S. airport, and he kept like trying to get bigger and bigger things through as his job as a federal tester. The day that he walked through with an unshielded Colt 1911 and didn't get caught, he quit. He's like, I'm done. An unshielded, unlead-wrapped 1911 walked through
On his
top 5
on his person or in his bag?
person. Do you know how much steel there is in a 1911?
I most
By the way,
Almost all of it except for the grips. That's pretty much-
right.
and you
With
can even get the
a full magazine.
Good Lord.
He's like, I'm done. You guys didn't turn the machine on, and so he became. I went to a wine tasting thing, and he was like, yeah, I used to do it because I was at a security event, and he's like, oh, I used to do physical security. I was like, oh, really?
Tell me more.
And he's like, oh my God. So the TSA not like checking the no-fly list. I just, But perhaps it's compliance-based security where you have a checklist and that's all you really care about. And you don't have people who understand threat modeling and don't understand risk and don't fly.
Yeah. So Paul, what's the old PCI joke? My traffic goes through a firewall.
That's right.
You have a firewall appliance that you drilled a hole through and you put the cable through the hole.
Yes.
Yep.
Cable through it. Traffic goes through the firewall.
Yep.
It's.
Yes.
We can't talk PCI because now we're going to wind Jeff up, and he's going to he's going to have flashbacks. Poor Jeff is going to have to take 12.
And he's going to start using his shooting hand.
He's going to have to take 12 Benadryl to sleep tonight, and.
Oh boy. Well, thank you everyone for doing this episode of Paul's Security Weekly. It was a lot of fun. It was off the rails. It was a good off the rails show. Thanks everyone for watching.
You got to do that every once in a while.
Larry, take us out.
Over and out. My Colt 1911 right there, baby.